COVID-19, such as, if you have to file a B2 or a B2 extension, or you have to file a H4 EAD or H4, they put a new requirement for biometrics, which means that you have to go and get fingerprints, you have to get your photo taken. So during COVID-19, they said that if it's an extension, we will use your old photographs and biometrics that we have on file. So they gave an exception for this COVID-19 period, and they said whoever is applying for H4 EADs, B2s, B2 extensions, we don't need your biometrics, so therefore we will process your cases without any delay. So that was also a respite that we got, a concession from USCIS. The biggest concession came for students. In March, USCIS announced that, just to backtrack a little bit, for students, by law, you could only take one course, that is 3 credits online. So all other courses had to be in person. But because of COVID and because, universities, schools, everything had to shut down and everybody migrated to online, including schools, they gave a concession and said that, we are waiving that requirement that foreign students cannot take online classes. They can, and everything, even if you take online classes, you're not going to in any way lose your status. So that's what happened, and everyone again was very happy. And then came Trump's first executive order, which was not as scary because it didn't affect as many people, and it was only for a short period of time at first. So when he published the first executive order, he basically said that people who are outside the country and those who are filing for a green card and have not yet received a green card, they will be put on hold if they have filed and it's pending, or they cannot file at all for a period of until September. So it wasn't a big deal because the consulates were all closed anyway. So no work was going on. So it really didn't affect anyone that much. And he had some exceptions like US citizen spouses, US citizen children, where, the exceptions given. So, it seemed like, it wasn't that bad. Then the next bombshell hit, which is basically the second proclamation. And the second proclamation pretty much said that all H's, J's, L's, and their dependents who were out of the country at the time that the proclamation came out and who did not have a valid visa at that time. A valid visa meaning not any valid visa, but the valid visa that they're wanting to apply for now. For example, if they're on a H1, then they should have had a H1 valid visa, not a B2 valid visa. So they amended and made it more stricter as well. So basically they said, so there's a huge gamut of people that are being affected because of this, including people who've been here for, 10 years now, because as Jyotsna well knows well that because the green card numbers are not available, a lot of people are stuck on H1s from the last 10 years, 12 years and longer. So even those people who have made their life in the United States, who have most probably their spouses here, and they went to India to get their visa stamped in March or just before that and got stuck. There's so many people like that, and so many families that are being separated because of that. The spouse is here, the husband is, the other spouse is there, the kids are in the US. So it's just, and there's no end in sight because, with the second proclamation, he extended the first one and he did the second one until December 31st. Now, and he said he could further extend it, further change it after that. It was within the language of the proclamation itself. So this really impacted a lot of people because it was extended until December 31st, and people are anxious because it can be extended further if the present administration wins the election. So, and then the third thing to happen is the student thing. So the student, there was a press release from USCIS which said that they are in the process of publishing regulations which are going to remove pretty much all the COVID-19 relief that they gave. So they said we are going to give some relief. Like, generally it's only one course that is allowed online. We're going to allow more than one course, but you have to take in-person classes, and that was a disaster for universities because if foreign students cannot remain in the country, or if they cannot come into the country, then a lot of departments will close down, a lot of universities will close down. So, this is what has been happening. And Jyotsna, if I might just continue for a few more minutes with this train of thought.
Sure.
Then what happened, people started realizing that, this is the only way out is to file a lawsuit. We have to train in this, the present administration and their anti-immigration agenda. And they have realized people have become, organizations and individuals as well have become enlightened to the fact that the courts are there, that the president does not have unilateral powers to change law. And there's been a lot of media coverage, of course, and a lot of exposure. So, that's been good. So what has happened after that is, as soon as the F1 announcement came out, we small people didn't have to do anything, because the big guns, Harvard, MIT, and Yale, and 17 other state universities, 2 days later filed a lawsuit. And just when the lawsuit was, it was before a judge in Boston, and just before it was going to be heard by him, it was going to be heard the next day, and the day before, USCIS pretty much retracted its announcement, and they said, no, we're not doing that. We've changed our mind. In addition to that, American Immigration Lawyers Association and other private groups and attorneys have filed lawsuits. So AILA has filed a lawsuit against both the proclamations, the family-based proclamation as well as the employment-based one. And another attorney has, and several people are filing, but one has already filed against the work of the H's, L's, and J's who are stuck outside the country. So as soon as that employment-based, that AILA filed that lawsuit, what happened again? The government again conceded. So basically the lawsuit was filed on the basis that it was too broad, it was overbearing, and that there was, so basically the reason for the lawsuit was that the economy was being harmed, and that, US citizen workers had to be protected. But it was not doing that. It was overbroad, because it was even, it even encaptured the H4 dependents and children who don't work. So it was clear that the motive was something else. And so they filed a lawsuit saying this is, it doesn't seem to be, this doesn't seem to be the reason. Why would all these categories of people be included if that was the reason, if the economy was the reason? And of course, I mean, you can't just say economy is the reason. You have to prove that the people who use H1s, like for example, the tech industry, 80% of the H1s are used by the tech industry. So you have to prove that industry was affected by COVID-19 and that there's a recession in that industry, which is not true. There is no recession in the tech industry and in healthcare and many other industries that were affected by this order. So basically, that's what the lawsuit said. And immediately after that, as I was saying, USCIS again filed an amendment, published an amendment, which said that H4 spouses and children in which the primary applicant was not affected. So if the spouse is on H1 and the spouse is not affected by the proclamation because he's either had a valid visa or he was not outside the country. If the spouse was stuck outside the country for some reason, in that case, that spouse is not affected by the proclamation, or the children of that are not affected either. So he gave that concession. And so we have to wait and watch further in this roller coaster of things that are happening, what will happen. And there's H4 EAD in the mix. There's a lawsuit. So you just stop me whenever you want.
Thank you so much, Prashanti. Indeed, it's a long, detailed explanation.
There's so many things happening. So
as the story unfolded, the COVID
horror, exactly.
I would say the COVID horror stories in immigration, right. As I would say, that is what has happened. And thank you so much for the detailed information for all the audience here. And this is to all the audience right now who are watching us right now, who are watching us on Mana TV and Mana TV International as well. This is a very special event which has been initiated and organized by India Foundation of Metropolitan Princeton, IFMP, and they are the main people who have organized this event, and Mana TV has partnered today to lead this event together with them. And Ms. Prashanti Reddy, a very renowned attorney with us right now, is here to guide and counsel all the people who have some questions regarding to the current situation, which is regarding this presidential proclamation, the immigration ban, the other things that have come up because of the COVID. And we are open to all the questions, and I have series of questions as well right now for all the audience. I just wanted to let my other audience as well know on the Mana TV platform, and all the IFMP team is already here. Prashanti, they're watching us live. I have series of questions. There's a first question that is coming up right now. Somebody, okay, that is Deepak Karunwal. He says that, do we see any movement in EB2 and EB3 categories for the dates to become current or something?
Right. So there's a recent update, actually, that EB3s will move, and EB2s for India may not move much, but there's expected to be a movement in EB3s and EB1s, of course, for Indian nationals. So that's what we can expect in the near future, maybe as soon as August, September. And as you know, October, the fiscal year gets over. So there's always, unavailability in October. And then again, there becomes availability again in the following months. That's always the pattern. So you can see there'll be an availability for maybe August, September, then unavailability October, most probably. And then again, you will see that they will, visa numbers will again become available. And they might also, Jyotsna, change the what they're looking at with reference to whether they're looking at the final date of action or they're looking at, the priority date. So that also changes, right, which helps, move some EB2s and EB3s forward.
Is there any prospect of getting a spillover in the sense that family-based visas have not, of course, been consumed? And is there any prospect that these visa numbers, the green card numbers, can become available to these waiting EB2, EB3 India category people?
Charlie Oppenheim, which is the guy that does this whole thing, he has not indicated that he's going to use unused numbers from family-based petitions. Usually it doesn't spill over from family to employment, but within the employment categories, of course, it spills over. But we can expect EB3 to move, EB1 and EB3. And there might be some movement in EB2 as well, especially with reference to the dates, date of action date.
Date of filing, I believe.
Date of filing versus, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Prashanti, I have another question from Wagish. And he says, what will happen to the green card application filed in New York if one takes intra-company transfer to other state in USA? When the priority date is current, can he file I-485 and get his EAD eventually GC?
So if the I-140 is already approved and you're filing the 485, usually the fact that the employer moved from one state to another should not affect the processing of the green card. It usually affects only at the labor stage and then again at the I-140 stage. At the 485 stage, it should not affect the certification of the labor or the I-140. So you should be able to file for 485. And if he changes employers based on AC-21, he should be able to transfer his 485 after 6 months of filing the 485.
Okay, so he was actually speaking about intra-company transfer. So I mean,
so he's transferring within the company, I guess.
Yes, that's where. So he's changing location.
He's changing location. So then if he's changing location, there's no issue because usually the advertising is done from the main location anyway.
Okay.
So if you have several locations, you're supposed to do the advertising, or if you don't know where the person is going to work, he's a roving employee, like most of us, most of the IT people are. They just do it from the main office. So it really doesn't matter if he's changing to a different location.
Thank you so much, Prashanti. I have another question that is from another person who says, my wife is in India and she needs to go for her H4 stamping. She's eligible for Dropbox. Do you have any insight when consulate centers are planned to open?
Well, first, yeah. So the proclamation won't apply to her, which is good, because she's among the amendments that happened.
Right.
With reference to consulates opening, they're supposed to open from July 15th onwards. Some countries have already opened. In some countries, the US consulates have already opened, in Europe and such. But India is still badly affected by COVID. So they're going to look at it on a, maybe in September is what I heard, that they might open if the COVID situation gets better. So we should wait and watch. I think every month they're reviewing it and see. But, in the interim, while the consulates are closed, if there is an emergency, and if you're able to prove it, then you could take an emergency visa. And that's available if you go to the consulate's website, wherever you are, and wherever the closest consulate is, and request for an emergency visa. And even the guidelines for who can get an emergency visa, usually people who are aging out. Like, for example, if you have a H4 child who's going to turn 21 and will no longer be eligible for H4, then they can get it. Immigrant visas can get it. So it really is on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you, Prashanti. And I have another additional question to it. When we speak about getting these kind of emergency visas, so people can reach out to the consulate directly or seeking a legal help from attorneys like you. Does it add some strength there?
Not really. Other than, knowing the, being able to prepare the case for consular processing or to go before the consulate, other than just getting prepared for the interview if that's required. But otherwise, you just go to the consulate and apply on the website. So you don't really need legal representation for that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I mean, this is also, right, fair information. Not everybody will give that information. Thank you, Prashanti. Okay, I have another question. This gentleman, Deepak Karanwal says, I have a I-140 approved in both EB2 and later I got my I-140 approved in EB3. My I-485 got filed with EB2. Do I need to file 485 again if my PDOC becomes current in priority date, basically becomes current in EB3?
Yeah, so, right, you can't file two 485s, right? You can only file one 485 because you have only one green card that you're applying for. You can't apply for two green cards.
Right.
So you have to either request them to, and sometimes that's possible, you can request them to use the EB3 priority date for your 485. That's possible. There is no formalized way of requesting it. You can write, your attorney can write a letter and request them, and usually I've done it in the past and it does work. Or you can call USCIS and speak to a supervisor, like an officer level person, not the people in the front monitoring the phones, and escalate it that way. So it's possible to do that. Otherwise, you can always, you have to then withdraw the 485 that you have. And within the same application, you can send a withdrawal of your previous 485. If your priority date EB3 becomes current, but I don't know why you would actually want to do that. It's important that you file your 485. Even if it's current, it has to stay current, right? Which is rather difficult. So I think you're safe if your 485 is filed. But if you're trying to withdraw it and file another 485 with the EB3 date, I don't think that's such a good idea, because it may be that a month later, your 485 will no longer be current and you'll be stuck in the same situation again. So it may not be that useful to you. It's based on you have to look at what your case is.
Absolutely. Thank you, Prashanti. I have another question, a very important question, in fact, for all the green card holders. Green card holders who are stuck in India, how long can they stay in India now?
Yeah, so that's the one of a good piece of information that we got, again, a concession from CBP. CBP is basically border protection, which mans the airports and all the ports, the land, and as well as the air and the sea. They have said that, again, on a case-by-case basis, because they don't want to commit to everyone. They don't want to make it into like a wide exception. They should, but I don't know why. Case-by-case basis, if they find that that person had to stay out of the country for more than a year because there were no flights available, and they could not come back, and it was for no fault of their own or delay, after COVID situation ended, if they continue to stay there for, a few months, for no reason, and then they came in, then obviously there's going to be a problem. But if they tried their best to, leave and come back to the US as soon as they could, then they will give concession. So there are two things that have to happen. If you're in India, you'll have to most probably travel from Delhi, because the local, if you travel from other local places, they won't allow you to board the international flight, because they don't have, not all airports and airline staff has instructions on, who should board and who should not. In general, if your green card if you're more than 1 year out of the country, they won't allow you to even board the flight.
Oh, wow.
But if you should, what they're doing is, suppose you're flying from Hyderabad, they're redirecting, they're saying that you should go to Delhi first. So they're booking you on a direct flight from Delhi instead of a direct flight from Hyderabad or some other, Mumbai or wherever.
Right.
And then at Delhi, they're looking into your paperwork, and then they're seeing if you're likely to be one of those exceptions, and then they're allowing you to board the flight. So that's the first step. And then the second step is, of course, at JFK or Newark or wherever you're landing. JFK, Frank Russo, who's the head of CBP, director of CBP, he just was took up a new position, but until recently he was a director, until a few days ago actually, has clearly told AILA members that anyone who comes in after 1 year on a green card, as long as they've met all the other conditions, they will be allowed into the country.
Very nice.
Josna ji, Amrish, can I ask a follow-up question? May I please?
Ji, Amrish, please, most welcome.
So, Santi ji, just to follow up on this, very well you touched upon the more than 1 year part of it. And for my mom, I'm kind of like in the middle of this, between less than 6 months, 6 months to 12 months, and more than 12 months.
Right.
So for the people who are between 6 to 12 months, there is one thing is this exception due to COVID-19. But just if you want to touch upon, if somebody has stayed out of country for between 6 to 12 months, and then they reach the citizenship stage, how does it impact their eligibility for citizenship? Does their 4-year, 5-year period restart? If you can expound upon that, please.
Right. So even in that situation, people have asked, and the response that we got from CBP is, of course, everybody tries to push it on the other person. They'll say that is a USCIS issue, because CBP is different from USCIS. And the USCIS is basically saying that we will deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So if we find at the citizenship interview, for example, or when you file your citizenship after you submit your N400 application, there is a valid reason for them to have stayed out. We might make exceptions. Otherwise the clock would stop, and then they would have to be again, establish physical presence, right? So you will not know, unfortunately, until you actually file the application, because they have not made any exception in totality. They're saying it will be on a case-by-case basis. So for all those people who are eligible, I would say file, right? And then give the reason of COVID-19, you couldn't come back because of that. And that's a really good reason for not coming back and for them to make an exception. It's a good try, but we don't know as yet what will happen.
Thank you so much, Shanti.
Thanks.
And even if it gets denied, what will happen is you can refile. So it's not a black mark because it's denied for a particular reason.
That's a good point. And now just flipping it the other way around, for visitors who are in US on a B1 visa,
right? And
so please take over from here.
Right. So the good thing about filing a B2 or B1 extension is it's pretty easy to file. So you can even file it online. And so a lot of people, thousands of applications have gone into USCIS. Most of them self-filed. As long as you do it carefully, it's possible to do it. And so it's easy to maintain status. So you shouldn't just sit around and say, okay, there are no flights, therefore I don't have to do anything. USCIS will anyway, take pity on me. No, it's up to you to ensure you're responsible for your status, right? It's up to you to ensure that you do everything possible to remain in status. And if you do that, then USCIS will appreciate it and will give you some concessions. If you just sit and do nothing, then they won't. So, for all of those people who are stuck here, file for extensions. It's possible to do it online. You can do it through an attorney, whichever way you do it, file it correctly and file it on time.
Thank you, Prashanti. In fact, yes, that is very important when people specifically are on B1, B2 kind of visas, they have to be very responsible. Otherwise, their entry for the next time is banned.
And sometimes people just take it for granted that, oh, because of COVID, everything is excused. I don't have to,
No way.
So it's not with immigration. So you have to, do your due diligence and, file on time.
Right. Thanks. So I have another question from Neetu Pal, and she says, I see that citizenship interview process is stalled because of Corona situation. Do we know when it would resume?
So it's not really stalled. USCIS is business as usual right now, at least until it was August 2nd. There was a furlough, Jyotsna, as you know.
Yeah.
13,000 people at USCIS have already been given notice because they have to be given 30 days notice because before they're laid off. And the 13,000 employees consist of 70% of their workforce. Wow. 70%. So, and they're saying if the Congress doesn't bail them out, then they'll have to follow these employees, which pretty much means USCIS will come to a halt. But as of now, they have extended it, I believe, by August 30th, USCIS, right, to give the Congress further time to look into it. Because there's been a lot of wrongdoing on USCIS's side as well, because they have not used the funds wisely. They have, not been efficient with their funds. So, there's talk about that USCIS has to show better efficiency before, more funds can be given to it. So that's the debate right now. So as of now, everything is business as usual. There's some delays because of biometrics, of course, because the application support centers are closed. But other than the biometrics delay, with everything else, it seems to be okay, except for, some other delays with EADs and right, green card, producing cards, because, that's a different story. But, I won't get into it right now because we have a lot of questions. I'd rather answer questions.
So Prashanti, yes, thank you. And another question I would relate it to this delay of processes. And of course, when we speak about biometrics, for people who are on H4 EAD, and when they have to go for renewal, now biometrics itself is a biggest hassle. So is there a legal route people are taking right now where they are asking, of course, taking this legal route and saying, hey, just, we don't want to go for biometrics this time. Give us our EAD without biometrics. Can something be done? Because biometrics itself is going to take the whole year and people may lose their jobs for sure.
So H4 EADs, again, there's lawsuits. Because H4 EAD is a big topic because it's taking an enormous amount of time for them to process H4 EADs. Right. And two issues. One is, of course, because of biometrics issue. So people are filing lawsuits based on that. Mandamus lawsuits, basically saying that, forcing USCIS to give a decision on the case. So you can file a mandamus lawsuit. And the other thing that I was just alluding to, but I didn't go into details, is what USCIS did in March was they fired all their contractors that produced the EAD cards and the green cards. They fired them because they wanted to hire someone else. And then COVID happened. And so now they are left with no one to produce the EAD cards and the green cards. So people, can you imagine H4s, approvals have come, but there's no EAD document, so they can't start working for the last 3 months and they've lost their jobs. So that's another lawsuit being filed. So this is the mess. This is one.
Oh my God. So there is a series of lawsuits, like lawsuits raining.
Yes, and it should be. It should be because of the mess that, USCIS is creating.
That's really not exactly a good thing, a good situation, There's too much of antagonism, of course, with too many lawsuits coming in picture. Well, let's see what happens for us, for the people who are here, Prashanti, I have another question. Well, the person wants to ask, I would like to understand family immigration view of Prashanti ji, basically. This is from Rajiv Singh ji. The family-based immigration, how does it work out in this situation right now?
So family-based immigration is affected to the extent that there are no biometrics can be taken. So for anything that you file, I-130, 485, right, the family-based petition, you have to go for fingerprints and you have to go for your photograph to be taken and you have to get medicals done. So this is a logistical problem because those application support centers are closed. But you can file your I-130 and 485, your family-based petition, and that will just be on, it'll be on pending status. So at least while it's pending, you will remain in status. You don't have to leave the country. You know, so I think there's no harm in filing, and as soon as things open up, things will happen automatically.
And what happens to the people from outside? Sorry.
Outside, yeah. So in the country,
you have to bring in your family members from outside. Yes.
Right. But just to finish, in the country, it has been pretty good actually, family-based immigration on the whole. It's been 6 to 8 months for people, you know, for immediate family members, where the visa numbers are current. So they've been processing them pretty good, but now with COVID, everything has changed. But people who are out of the country is a different story because they come under the first proclamation. So nothing can happen. First of all, the consulates are closed, but even if they open up, nothing can happen until December 31st. And if he extends it further, then, you know, in the future also.
Wow.
But this is all, you know, this is what the present administration wanted to do, Jyotsna, and they're just finding COVID-19 is a way for them to do it, because the present administration has been for, at least they say they want the number, the point system, just like Canada and, you know, Australia and other countries. So they want only merit-based immigration, and they don't want asylum, they don't want family-based immigration. So this is one way of kind of closing the doors, you know, on family-based immigration to the extent that they can. So I think, you know, that's my opinion. That's what's happening.
I understand your opinion, and I'll keep quiet there, keeping my opinions at rest right now. Prashanti, I have another question from Mr. Ambrish Agarwal, where he says, what is the status of visitors in US with I-94 expiring?
So if it's already expired, I have heard some instances in which they have received an email from the consulate saying that their visa has been cancelled.
Wow.
So this is possible. Don't think that you will be forgiven. My suggestion to you is, if your I-94 has already expired, then leave as soon as you can. There are a lot of flights available. I mean, not a lot, but there are flights available. It is possible to leave, if not this month, then next month. You have to really work at doing it, because you have to register at the embassy first, the embassy website, and then you have to keep monitoring the Air India website for you know, availability, and it can happen. So you should do it, because if you stay out of the country for more than 6 months, 180 days, then you accrue unlawful presence, and if you do accrue unlawful presence, you cannot come back into the country for the next 10 years. So you there's no excuse for not filing an extension when you could. The other thing you could do is file an extension anyway, right? Do both.
Right.
Look for flights out of the country and file an extension anyway, even though it's delayed, and explain the delay. Sometimes they might forgive it, you know, on humanitarian grounds.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for the inputs, Prashanti. I know I'm bombarding all the questions one by one. No. Going in. And the more questions coming.
I like it. I like a lot of questions.
I know. And that's where you win it, you know, win our hearts as well. So I have another question from GV. That's his name. I mean, he's asking, there are many H-1B denials. Can you shed some light about H-1B approvals or denials? Well, okay. You can say.
So I guess he just wants a comparison between the approvals and denials, or what the denial rate is, blah blah blah. So as of last year, the denial out of the H1s filed, 60% were RFE'd, and out of that 50% were denied.
Wow.
Yeah, and this was all due to two reasons. One is there's a right to control concept, where they said, you know, the person is not an employer if you work at a third party site. And the second is specialty occupation. They said a particular occupation is not a specialty occupation because it doesn't require a bachelor's in one field. It requires a bachelor's. For example, if I said a software engineer required a bachelor's in computer science, math, engineering, then they're saying it's not a specialty occupation, because they're saying there are multiple fields. It should only require a bachelor's in computer science only, not computer science and engineering. So, you know, they're coming up with these weird definitions of specialty occupation, which was unknown before. Two ways basically of closing the doors. So because of that, there were many denials in the last few years since 2017, you know, since the present administration took over, and even before that, I must say. So recently there's been there was a lawsuit filed by, ITServe versus Cessna. Now everyone who is on a H1 knows about that lawsuit. And due to that lawsuit, one of the reasons, which is basically the right to control the employer-employee relationship reason, which they were using to deny at least 30% of that 60% RFEs cases, that has gone away. So it's in that scenario, it's become 50% better for us with reference to denials. RFEs also have really slowed down. So this cap season should be much better than the last year's cap. So there is some silver lining and some good news along with the bad news.
Thanks, Prashanti. I think Ayla has been working very hard there, supporting the non-immigrant community at large.
But, everyone has been, yeah, everyone.
But I just wonder, with Ayla not taking a stronger stand on this green card backlog issue for
I know that is something, a bone of contention, Jyotsna, that you have.
I will be vocal throughout. That's what we breathe. I live that. So my question to generally is for the Ayla as well as is why there has not been any effort on behalf of the Ayla for the current bill. There is a S386 bill, which is in the like it is in the Senate, and Senator Dick Durbin is putting a hold there and not letting it pass, where they will remove the 7% per country cap, and Indians around 600,000 in number will get some relief and will get their green cards. Otherwise, they will have to wait for these green cards for more than 100 years. Why is Ayla not active there? Why is
it's very controversial to support one nationality and oppose another nationality, right? So Ayla members have clients from all different countries, right? Mm-hmm. So if they support, not everyone is all on Indian nationals. They are European nationals. They are, other Asians. So if by this fact, what will happen is that green card numbers will become unavailable then for example, for Europeans. So instead of doing that, they want green card numbers to be removed completely, which is a better way of doing it. Rather than having, they want the number or to be increased, I must say, sorry. So they want
they should increase or do something.
Yeah, increased, and then the quota is removed so that other groups are not disadvantaged. So then we have to file another lawsuit for the other group.
Ayla is a very strong body,
file a lawsuit for another group.
No, we understand. Ayla is the strongest body there. So what we believe is they should support, either they should reach out to the senators and congressmen and say, okay, increase the number of green cards and then remove the per country cap, which they're otherwise opposing. But this is the strongest body which can help this largest community, here. I mean, that is my personal take, and I will always voice it, as you know. Having said that, of course, now there is another question coming in from another gentleman. He says, is the path to citizenship via sibling sponsorship faster than waiting for EB2 in current situation? How long approximately it takes for a sibling sponsorship? Oh my God, that takes ages. Prashanti, your take.
Yeah, ages, but I have not looked at it recently because recently, actually, it's last year, it became current for Indian nationals' siblings. So
really?
at certain points, it has become current recently, which has never happened in the last 10 years. So it's surprising that family-based sometimes is overtaking, is better than employment-based, So is this siblings or spouses? What did he say?
Sibling. I'm speaking about
siblings. Okay, sorry, Jyotsna. I thought you were
spouses.
I'm thinking about spouses. So
no,
permanent resident spouses has become current on and off. Yeah, but siblings is like 20 years.
Sibling is forever. That's what I laughed at it.
Which is as bad as EB2. Is no better than EB2.
I have one question actually.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, this is Mahendra Jyotsna. And I have one question about the public charge benefit. So like as we are on H1B status from last 10 years, if our children are on let's say Child Health Plus program, or if we are having any kind of essential plan through New York State Gov Health marketplace, will it be considered as a public charge benefits? And will that come under that the executive order that recently the president has signed about that public charge benefits we have to declare?
So there's an exception for children. If children have taken some kind of a healthcare benefit, I believe there's an exception for them. There are certain exceptions in that public charge benefit rule, and it's not the same thing if you're on a H1 versus if you're filing a green card. For both, you have to show that you won't be a public charge, but it's much more stringent if you're actually filing a green card. But you're on a H1, you just have to declare. It's a short form where you have to declare whether you've ever taken a benefit in the past, right? So, and also for that, there is an exception for, I don't know exactly what, which healthcare benefit you're talking about. We have to look into that because every state has their own benefits. But in general, if it is related to children, there is an exception for it. And if it is related to something like your employer is sponsoring, for example, if it's an insurance, like you take an unemployment benefit, you take an unemployment insurance. A lot of people think that's a public charge, but it isn't.
So if it is an essential plan, if you know New York State have a marketplace and there is an essential plan, and if we have opted for that essential plan, which is a kind of a narrow kind of a program from the state-run Medicare kind of a program. So it doesn't
Medicare, if it's Medicaid, then you will be affected. But if you're paying an insurance, but you're eligible for an insurance which is less expensive, then you may not be a public charge because you are paying an insurance and you're getting a benefit.
Yeah, because they charge very nominal.
Yeah, like, but it's a lower insurance, but it's still like, it's like, you know, a student insurance, a student taking insurance, which is lower.
Okay.
So like I'll have to look into it further. I don't want to give you a yes or no answer, but it should not, especially if it's related to children, it should not be a public charge.
Okay.
Thank you, Mahinder. Interesting question. In fact, very nice inputs there from Prashanti. Thank you so much, Prashanti. Prashanti, again, repeated question is coming though. It's about, I heard there'll be spillover from unused green cards due to recent ban. What are the chances it'll be used and can help EB2 or it'll be wasted? So, I mean, we know the answer that will not go, you are saying it will not go to the EB2, EB3 categories. Where does this number stay then if it is not consumed by the family?
Nothing, it just vanishes. And that's the whole problem. There's so many unused numbers that have not been used in the past because, you know, it was not, this has only happened in the last 10, 15 years, but, you know, this program has been there since the 80s. So there are so many numbers that have accumulated from the past, which have not been used for the whole world, you know, various countries we're talking about. So
is there any legal route to it?
Well, you have to file a lawsuit and say that unused numbers should be used and force them to use it. Same thing with the H1B numbers, right? H1B 60, you know, the 85,000 cap that they have, there are a lot of unused numbers because people, 30% of the cases are getting denied. Why can't you reuse them again? So this year, it's not happening with the green cards, but with reference to the H1s, there is an attempt to find out what numbers have been unused by a survey and then going back to the USCIS and asking them to, you know, what happened with these unused numbers. So let's see what happens. Maybe that will spill over into the green cards.
Well, that is very interesting to know.
It's much more harder to do that with the green cards because it's so many years. And, you know, there are only certain organizations that keep track. And I don't even know if they've kept track or not or who has kept track. But this is possible because users can keep track. So if you've registered under the H1B this year and you have not used your registration, you have not filed your H1, you know your one number and you know that number is available.
Right.
You can reach out to AILA and inform them that, look, I have not filed. And they're gathering all those numbers, as many as they can. And they're going back to USCIS and saying, look, we have that, whatever, 10,000 numbers that have not been used. And pushing them to, you know, have a second lottery because they, as per their regulations itself, they said that if they're unused numbers, it's possible to have a second lottery.
It's very interesting to know, Prashanti.
They never do it.
It is happening for the first time, right? This is the first time they're doing this.
Even before, there's always been a question about unused numbers, but it was harder to track. But now with this new registration system, it's easier to track. So they can actually say, okay, this has not been used, this has not been used, you know.
Then this could be the
and
first
track
year
it now. They can track it before the end of the month. because all the cases have already been filed. So whatever has not been, we're not even talking about denials here.
Sure.
We're talking about cases that were not filed, so it's much easier to track.
So this means this would be the first year marked as a benchmark year where people will be able to track the numbers, unused visa numbers, thanks
Correct.
to the
Yeah,
registration
yeah.
process.
Right. Because, you know, in the past, denials wouldn't come immediately. They would come a year later, 6 months later. So it was hard. They won't again put it back in the same year because they'll just say, oh, the year is over. And there is no carry forward method. So they would just say that, oh, there were no numbers. Now they can't say that. So let's see what happens.
Thank you so much for these inputs, Prashanti. Very learned, you know, we're very much prompt there in answering everything. I hope the IFMP team is well satisfied there, you know, with all the questions that they asked and they got the answers. Are there any open questions? Rajiv ji, Amrish ji, Sanjeev ji, I see, you know, all of you there, Deepak ji. Any more questions you want to put in? Amrish ji, you're on mute.
I only have compliments, Prasanti ji. You are like the best fielder. I can, from my time, remember Maninder Singh. Any ball, Maninder must catch. And you are just like that. Cannot get any question away.
Thank you so much, Amrish ji. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
So with that, Josana ji, when you get a moment, if you can share on screen for everybody Prashanti ji's contact details, I can see that some questions may be of like personal nature, or somebody may need detailed consultation. Prashanti ji is ready.
So
an awesome professional.
Thank you, Amrish ji. I would request you to give like the file sharing rights to Prashanti ji herself, so that she can share her screen and show her contact.
Can I just chat? I can do it in the chat.
You can, I believe, if you put it on the screen would be better, Prashanti, if you have it on your computer somewhere. Because you are live on the Mana TV platform as well, and viewers would be able to see. The chat may not go public on the television right now. So if there is, if there's a provision,
I will share Prasanti ji's contact detail in my next broadcast for sure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Prashanti ji,
you are co-host, so you should be able to share the file
yes,
on the screen using screen share.
Prashanti ji is the co-host?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
she is.
Perfect. So if you have that on the screen, Prashanti, it'll be great. That'll be great for everyone. It's more about reaching to the right people and getting the guidance. And I mean, I have been interviewing Ms. Reddy for many shows now. Like I have hosted many shows, and I have sought her guidance for my legal masses there, our non-immigrant category, high-skilled immigrants. And we are never like, we are always happy with all the answers, and that's a great help that comes from her. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So in addition to this, Prashanti, we will definitely, I believe we will be wrapping up soon.
Yeah, Josna ji, maybe we can take a couple of more questions.
Sure, please.
Okay, good.
Okay, so Ms. Reddy, her contact information is prashanti@reddyesq.com. So it's prashanthi@reddyesq.com. That is the email ID. You can reach out to Prashanti there, email her. And other than that, definitely that's where
I shared my
yes,
email
perfect.
contact.
The law offices of Prashanti Reddy. So they are based out of New York, and being an immigration attorney, Prashanti, you can practice anywhere in US?
Yes, yeah, pretty much in all states.
And you can represent anyone all over US, right?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I believe they would be able to take the note there. And I will give a moment more. So if there are any other open questions from the team, from anyone, you are most welcome to ask. Otherwise, of course, I may have my own line of questions, but yes, the nature of the questions is brilliant here. It's covering every aspect, whether it is family-based immigration or high skill or any other aspect of immigration, even the citizenship and all. So you're most welcome to ask questions. Again, to the audience of Mana TV International, this is an exclusive event which has been organized by IFMP, and Ms. Reddy is there taking questions from the team there. In addition to this, Mana TV has taken the lead to live telecast this show to all our broader audience all over. And if you have any questions, yes, you can reach out to Prashanti Reddy as well, as the number and the name and the email ID shows there. So we can, I think, flip the screen now, Prashanti. Thank you so much. You can stop your screen sharing there. And thank you so much. Appreciate it. So with regards to the scenario right now, as you see, 31st of December is the time till the time that this immigration ban is in place, right?
Correct.
Do you
Yeah.
see any prospects of this ban getting extended?
Yes, that seems to be the word in the capital. Yeah, that they, COVID is not going away so soon, right? You will not see normalcy until maybe sometime next year. So there is still a reason to, if they've done it now, there is a reason to extend it further and do it, for the further duration of time as well. But what we have to remember, Jyotsna, is that the president, as I said, doesn't have unilateral powers to do whatever he feels like doing. So they're the courts, and already there have been lawsuits filed with reference to both the presidential proclamations. So we can definitely see some, we will definitely see some movement with reference to that. Either the proclamations will be amended, or they might be suspended, or they might be become restricted in their scope. So let's see what the judges decide, and depending again on who the judge is, there's so many factors that have to be looked at. So we don't know what the outcome will be, but I have a feeling that it will be a good outcome. So if it's extended, it's not up to the president to extend again, and you can't keep on doing extensions even if you want to, because you have to give a justification for it. So if there is an extension, there could be another lawsuit basically saying that there is no justification. And you're saying, Jyotsna, that
Right.
you shouldn't be wary of legal lawsuits, because if not for lawsuits, then everything would be a total mess, and people would have no rights. And the government would do as it pleases. And in democracy, that's not how it works.
So Prashanti, thank you. In fact, I'll interrupt here and ask you one specific question as it relates to the general masses. Whenever the term lawsuit comes in mind,
yeah,
there is an automatic fear that creeps in.
Right.
Every single person wants to stay away from the word lawsuit or get into that ditch. They were like, no, we don't want to be part of a lawsuit. It could impact our immigration status one way or other. Would you like to throw some light on the aspect of lawsuits when people club together and join into mass litigations or do simple litigations, go against the administration? How does it impact their own immigration status, or if it does not, why it does not?
Because we're in a democracy, and people have the right to file a lawsuit, and people have the right not to be targeted because they're filing a lawsuit. And I'm glad we're still in a democracy, and and the democracy has not collapsed, and that there is still a separate judiciary, there's still an executive, there's still a legislature, and they're all separate entities, because that's how checks and balances occur, right? So you have to make sure you use your rights, and file if you think you've been wronged, and obviously you're using an attorney, they'll tell you whether your lawsuit is good or it isn't. Obviously, nobody should file a frivolous lawsuit, but the only impact could be either there'll be no impact, or it'll be a good impact. The only disadvantage is you lose money. And nowadays, because lawsuits against USCIS have become so common, attorneys are not charging tens and thousands of dollars. They're filing lawsuits en masse. They're gathering a small amount of money from each person to join them as a group. So it's become very affordable to litigate. So you should, absolutely, you should litigate. Don't sit at home and moan and groan about how your EAD card didn't come, how you lost your job. Take action, file a lawsuit, and at least feel better about it. Feel better about yourself, that you are more in control of the situation. So
Thank you for this writer aspect of litigation and empowering people with the right information. Prashanti, there are people asking about your contact info again, so I'll tell them that you can reach out to Prashanti Reddy at prashanti@reddyesq.com. That is PRASHANTHI@REDDYESQ.com. And now I have another series of questions coming in. So first question in line again is, they're asking, is there a chance USCIS will stop premium processing?
So we just had the ELA conference, just got over, it was last week, all of last week. And so there were a lot of updates, and one of them was about premium processing. So I'm able to answer that question. And it seems like even though they'll be at a shortage of staff, they don't want to stop premium processing because that is the one thing that brings them revenue. So they're going to try and keep premium processing alive as much as they can, even though they don't have the staff. They're going to try and make an effort to keep it alive.
All right, thank you there. I sometimes laugh at some answers, expected answers, so sorry for my behavior there. So Prashanti, another question from Meghal here. She's asking, if someone has 3 years H1B approved, but passport is not stamped yet, can that person go to India, say in December?
Yes, because you're not subject to the proclamation, because you are not out of the country at the time of you have two things should have happened: not out of the country and don't have a valid visa. You were in the country, you were in the US at that time when the proclamation came out. So after the fact, you can go and get your visa stamped. So that's not an issue.
So this was a new addition to the proclamation, I believe, right, Prashanti? Because it was not quoted earlier. Later on, this information came that if you are already in status, then if you are going to India, you can get your passport stamped, right?
So there is a twist to it. It's really not as simple as reading the proclamation, understanding it, because each time they're putting amendments to it, they're giving clarifications which make no sense. Which are not even based on what the proclamation is, but they're making their own clarifications and their own changes. And one of that is, if you had a valid visa at the time of the proclamation, it should not affect you. You're out of the country, but you had a valid visa. It should not affect you. But they're saying now, if the visa expires after the proclamation, you cannot go for an extension. That's not what the proclamation says. So they're making these exceptions as they go. So we don't even know what to advise client at this point. So in answer to your question, I'm saying it based on what the proclamation is. So unless they make an amendment and again say that it is not covered, as of now it's covered. So I have to give that disclaimer for everything.
Oh my God, that's very risky. So please don't take things for granted, of course.
And if you don't have to leave the country, don't right now, just stay.
That is advisable for sure.
Yeah.
Don't leave the country if you are not in need to leave. Stay there, hang in tight till December 31st, celebrate the new year. I hope this 2020 memory fades away from everybody's mind, the most horrific year in the history, with the part of the history, we're making it here. Anyways, so Prashanti, I have another question here. That is, this question is H1B extension going to be more expensive than before? Here, it is heard that it is going to be increased 3 times the cost of the H1B extension. Is that so?
So there are many proposals in place, and one of them is, yes, they're always looking to increase the H1B fee because they want to make it prohibitively expensive so that people don't apply. So yes, it is a possibility.
So we are forcing another lawsuits by the organization.
Yes, yeah, but it's a big hassle because it's not easy,
my goodness,
to galvanize people, file a lawsuit, fight, get a response. So this is what they're doing. It's a chicken and mouse game basically right now.
Wow, amazing. I mean, this is all right. So yeah, I mean, a lot of questions we had put here, and then of course, a lot of questions still are coming in. Anybody else wants to ask questions? We're open to ask questions, as Prashanti is actively responding to everything here. And I like the energy Prashanti has, and she's very vocal there. She puts her heart and mind state there, So of course, everybody's opinion is respectfully placed there, and political and non-political associations are not being emphasized here. But then what is happening in today's scenario is, of course, we on a holistic note are talking about the immigration statuses, how we have to protect them, safeguard them, how well we can empower you with the knowledge and the information, the right steps that you can take. This is what IFMP's initiative has been today when they're organizing this online event here right now, and Prashanti being there as you know, a special attorney here guiding everyone. Mr.
I
Rajesh?
have a question for Prashanti ji. So,
Yes, please.
so for someone who has filed for green card and waiting for the I-485 filing and has a kid who turns 17, what happens?
So the aging out age is 21. So
Okay.
we're okay with 17. When it's not 18, it's 21.
So if the kid has to go to a college here, he will be considered as a international student or domestic?
Domestic, because they're living here. If they live in state, they'll get in-state waiver or whatever. So it really depends on their residence and how long they've been living in that state. So that should be fine. But if they're turning 21 or 20 or whatever that age is, the magic age, then they'll age out. There's some limited exceptions, like they will take into consideration the amount of time that the immigrant petition took to get approved. So if it took a long time, they'll deduct that amount of time. So there's some limited things can be done, but unfortunately then they'll age out, then the parents will become permanent residents, then they'll have to apply as adult children of permanent residents. So that's a different category completely, and it takes much longer. So they fall into a different classification.
Yes, and this is for the general masses, as we are, you know, educating the masses here as well, for everybody who's here about this immigrant community, people who come on the non-immigrant visas here, who are on H1s, you know, and if their kids were born in India, this is, I'm just enlightening them, allow me, Prashanti, and everybody.
Sure.
So if they come here to this country when they were kids, and they take all the education here and everything, as Mr. Sanjeev asked about the question about this child who would go to the college, you know, the aging out. So if their parents do not get green cards by the time they turn 21, they age out. In the sense, they are out of status after that. So their parents cannot maintain the status as they are no more dependents, technically. For that reason, the student, the kid, has to either go on a different visa. That could be either a student visa or any other visa. Otherwise, they will have to leave this country. Despite staying in this country legally, despite their parents pay taxes in this country, are law-abiding, are high-skilled, or contributing to the economy of this beautiful land, this is a very unjust situation for these legal, high-skilled immigrants' kids that they face here. And it is so unfortunate that most of the Indian Americans are not aware about this fact. While people are very educatively, very vocal about DACA, the kids who were brought in here, through their parents, undocumented, and 800,000, such undocumented kids are seeking rights right now to stay in the country. Everybody is vocal there, but nobody knows the misery of these legal dreamer kids, as somebody had coined the term DALCA, or legal dreamer kids. So I believe senior citizens, people in the political circles, or wherever you are, the Indian Americans, should take cognizance of this fact and be vocal there for this category of kids, because they are the future generations who are the spelling bee champs, who are the robotics champs, who are excellent in their areas. Their parents are high skilled, they've been taught well, but they eventually brain drain from this country because they leave this country. That was my personal take to educate everyone. I'm sorry for that. Yes.
That was very well put together, Jyotsna ji.
Yeah, Jyotsna ji, very well covered point. This is very important, and I guess not many people have realized the aspect that you shared today. So I think this is very valuable aspect of the life many people or many kids are going through. Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you so much, Rajiv ji. In fact, thank you, Sanjeev ji, for raising this question and bringing this to everybody's information. So I believe we are almost near our time. And Prashanti, as far as the H1B new cap season is concerned, now, what is the prospect do you see now? People who filed for their H1Bs on site, like while they're in US, whether they shifted their visa status from H4 to H1 or L1 to H1 or F1 to H1, would it be an easy transition, or do you still see any trouble for them?
So it's, again, nothing has changed. In fact, it's easier than it was last year in the sense that, we don't have this whole right to control employer-employee relationship issue that's thrown out of the window. So we're seeing less RFEs, and so far it's too early to tell, less RFEs and less denials. But one thing that has come up and will always come up is this change of status from F1 to H1. They're always looking into whether the F1 maintains status or not, whether the student took a day one CPT, whether, even is the student allowed to take CPT when they've finished a whole session of OPT. They're changing they're changing the interpretation of the regulation, as they please. So during COVID, what might happen, which is an added problem, is that when in the past, when they filed change of status from F1 to H1, even if they were not able to show that they were in F1 status due to various changes that happen every day, which are retroactive, they could just say that, okay, we don't want to answer your question about status. We just want H1 approve it for consular processing. And they would just go out of the country, get their visa stamped, and they're pretty successful in doing that. Majority of them are stamped, and they come back into the country. So now that may not be possible because of COVID. If they file a change of status and they're not able to show that they're in F1 status, and they ask for consular processing, then they can't leave. So they'll have to remain, because the consulates are also closed because of that. So they'll have to remain in the country on an F1 until they're actually, so they have to keep extending their F1. So maybe they have to take a whole new semester or a master's degree all over again, which is a huge expense.
Oh my God, that's very, that's a very bad situation.
Yeah, a lot of these kids who are trying to maintain their status, being on a student status and taking courses that they don't need to take simply to maintain status is a very expensive prospect. So that could happen this year.
Oh, wow.
I have one more.
Yes.
I have one question on the H1B, right? So during COVID, a lot of companies are letting people work from home. Many people are preferring to work from home, which is not an office location. Does that have any impact on either H1 filing, extension, or transfers?
Yes, that's a big question that everyone asks. That's a very popular question in all these forums that I go to. Because yeah, that's the reality, right? That everybody has moved to moved pretty much to working from home. So the answer to that question is, if they're working within, suppose they were working at a client site and their home is within commuting distance of the client site, or is within the same MSA, as we call it, Metropolitan Statistical Area, which is basically the same county in layman's language, then they don't have to file an amendment. They can just work from home, post the documents on their refrigerator, and they're done. So, but if they happen to live in an area which is away from their workplace, not within commuting distance, then they have to file an amended petition, which is not a big deal. And an amended petition is easy enough to file. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be approved. You only need to file it. And then you can start working from whichever location you say you're going to work from. And then you can revert back to your previous H1 and withdraw your amendment. Don't file it premium processing. You're just filing it to safeguard your status. But even before it's approved, you can withdraw it and revert back, once you start working in person again, at location. So that's what I've been telling people. And the other effect it's had is, of course, laying off is another effect, right, with this COVID for H1. So there's a 60-day grace period for that. So you have 60 days to find another job, if you're laid off. The other effect is people are not being laid off, but their hours are being reduced. And for that, again, if it's a big reduction in hours, if that is billing, if it's a big reduction, then again file an amendment. If it's a few hours, then it doesn't really matter, even if you don't file. For example, if you're working 40 hours and now you're working 35 hours, I don't think you need to file that. So these are the different changes that have happened in the work visa situation, that we are seeing a lot.
Very interesting.
Right.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sanjeevji, for interesting questions, And yes, that is the need of the hour to be informed there, And Rajivji, over to you right now, because I know we are nearing the end of the conversation here, this long session.
Thank you, Josna ji. Thank you, Prasanti ji. I don't know. I'm lost of words. About 1.5 hour went like just a few minutes. As our treasurer and co-vice president, I am reading the message in the chat. He said, so the message says a very valuable, informative session for the community, and I totally agree with him. Deepak Chanani ji said. Like I said, lots of words, very valuable, very informative, and very meaningful evening for the community. And Prashanti ji, as Amrish ji said, I don't recall, though I have not came across many attorneys, but I don't recall, seeing anybody like you with the passion, knowledge, and energy. Three things combined together on the subject matter. I think we could have gone for next hour or two, and still people would have stayed in the call. I know it's 10:30 here, so obviously, we are ending the call now. But thank you very much. Josna ji, sometimes I feel like you have a law degree because the kind of knowledge you have demonstrated here, amazing. And obviously, in the media field, I have said it before, I have not come across many like you. Thank you. IFMP today has been, fortunate and feel honored to have you both here in this prime time with the community. So thank you, both of you, for making this event this evening so meaningful for our community. IFMP, as we all know now, India Foundation of Metropolitan Princeton, I say is a synonym for community service. We all, it's a group of 10, 12, I think to be precise, 12 committee members, very committed, very dedicated. They all have their own day job, but we try to find our time to do best for the community. So this kind of event, although it's a virtual, but requires lots of planning, and that's where the committee comes into picture. In this particular event planning, I know Josna ji, behind the scene, you have been instrumental to make it happen, coordinating with Prashanti ji, talking to me. So thank you very much. I feel like I should name my committee members. So I will go one by one. You all have heard Amrish ji, our president, Vikas Ohri ji, vice president, Deepak Chanani ji, treasurer, co-vice president, Amit Agrawal ji, joint treasurer, Nitu Pal ji, joint secretary, Sanjeev Maharana ji, committee member, Meghal Thakkar ji is committee member, Bharti Sraf ji, Viral Patel ji, Sai ji, Deepika Kohli ji. Maybe I'm missing, I always do, I miss, and then I realize I made a mistake. So sorry if I missed anybody. This team does the magic, brings the magic. So thank you to my team members, committee members. And thank you all, our community, our members, our supporter, our sponsor. This is a collective work. This is a collective team. Committee is one aspect of the bigger picture of the team, and you are the other aspect. So thank you all. Thank you, our trustee. They are behind the scene, supporting us, making sure that they take care of one aspect of the overall organization of IFMP is. So a lot to say about this. IFMP, 43 years organization, non-profit organization in New Jersey. And as the time progresses, more and more people are aware. And with this virtual setup, it's a global now. So um, to all our global audience, thank you very much. Back home, motherland India, a very good morning. And I'm pretty sure there are few, if not many, are watching there too. Once again, Prashanti ji, thank you very much. Thank you very much for finding time from your busy schedule. We highly appreciate that. Josna ji, what to say?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
With this, it has been honor and our pride to bring this event to you all. We look forward to the next event. We'll keep you posted, about the next event. Like Amrish ji said, we are the team is full of passion and energy, and community service is our synonym. So we will keep exploring, we'll keep thinking what makes sense for you, like this one. We'll try to bring next event. With this, thank you very much. Good night here and good morning in India. Thank you very much.
హాట్ సమ్మర్ లో టాటా మనకు అందిస్తోంది కూల్ టాటా సమ్మర్ సందడి 2020.